19th, 2018, only a few more days to Christmas, and then blasting off with 2019. That feels like it's going to be a tumultuous year. And my dear Chocolate and Fluffy, I had hoped to have them here, but some nights they know this is like a game, and they'll be creeping around on the floor, and you'll be able to see them. They're growing so big and they are so fluffy. I've never had cats with this much of a badger-like hair, so if they show up, you'll see what I mean. They're really, really wonderful. I love them so much. And tonight, I have a special report for you that relates to the mysteries of that foggy smoke that was in my office twice during the broadcast a couple of months ago, that many of you guessed might be the return of a soul from people or animals that have been family to me in my life. I have an amazing experience along that theme to share from a man who lives in Pennsylvania and is one of my Earth Files YouTube watchers. It's an amazing story. But before I get into that, I have an update on more mysterious, loud, explosive sounds in Phoenix, Arizona, with the question, are these the same explosive sounds that people all over the United States, Canada, Mexico, and around the world have been reporting since January of 2011? I've done some 200 boom reports now in depth on my Earth Files News website over the past 7 years. And whatever is going on, the Phoenix police and the bomb squad authorities don't have any answers now, as they have not in the past. But because of security cameras, we can hear right now, tonight, on my Earth Files YouTube channel, what one of the strange November explosions sounded like, and compare it to one that was just this last weekend on Saturday, December 15th, near 5 a.m. Let's listen right now. I have both of those security camera videos at the top of my new Earth Files report called Mysterious Explosions Persist in Phoenix and Glendale, Arizona. So they will always be in that Earth Files report. You can go and listen as many times as you want because they are there embedded in my report. And what I think is so significant is that now these have been captured on security cameras. 11 years ago, we didn't have more than, I think, one from Massachusetts for that whole time period. And now we've got two for comparison in Phoenix. And in my own mind, where other people ranging from Canada to the United States to Mexico, I've talked with hundreds of people about these sounds. Some have said that it was like a bomb went off and shook their house and their windows. Some people have said that the sound has come from above in the atmosphere, down, or from the ground shaking their feet. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go further into my Earth Files report that I have now at earthfiles.com, so you can see some of the map areas in Phoenix where this has been recorded. It began on this current round on October 2018. The Phoenix Police Department and the local TV stations received several reports then and have received several since then of unexplained explosion sounds. And this most recent one on Saturday, December 15th, it was around 5 a.m. It was this loud blast that woke up residents, and the map shows that it was near 45th Avenue and Bethany Home in Glendale. This is a northwestern suburb of Phoenix. And on the map, you can see in the upper left, there is a red circle that has the coordinates of the address. It's northwest of Phoenix. And down in that area where there is the red circle of Phoenix, there have been explosion sounds between there going north and Glendale. And one of the ear witnesses said, quote, "The explosion sound shook the walls and the windows. It was intense. It was powerful," close quote. Now that resident told Fox 10 TV, a reporter, that she did not want to be identified because this woman was worried that someone, quote, "was loose in this neighborhood maliciously blowing things up," close quote. That's how worried neighbors are. Well, from that date of December 15th, this most recent Saturday, and this early morning explosion sound, the Phoenix police have released a security camera photograph of a white pickup that they think could be related to that mystery explosion and perhaps others. But no one has been arrested, and there are no suspects that have been named. Now, to date, after 2 months of these periodic reports, Phoenix and Glendale police have not been able to find any explosion evidence, and they have no idea what the source of the persistent explosive sounds could be in the Glendale case or in the North End Phoenix regions of 43rd Avenue to 27th Avenue. On this map, these red lines are showing the regions. West Greenway Road to Union Hills Drive, and 35th Avenue and Bell Streets. Now, when you come out wider, you can see that the upper red circle that is north of Phoenix and the Glendale region is in the red line map that we just saw on close-up. That's the region where these repetitive explosive booms have been going on since October. So between October 2018, December 15th, there have been many. The Phoenix Bomb Squad detectives are investigating, and the Phoenix and Glendale police departments are asking for the public's help. They said if anybody has seen anything like this white pickup truck in that region that was photographed on Saturday near 5 a.m., December 15th, or that you would have any other information about mysterious explosive sounds in the Phoenix-Glendale region since October, please call Phoenix Police Department 602-262-6151, the Glendale Police Department 623-930-3000. There is a silent witness line at 480-WITNESS, which is the number 948-6377. And then, for Spanish speakers, you can leave an anonymous tip by calling Testigo Silencioso at 480-TESTIGO. These booms, they have been one of the strangest phenomena in the last 7 years. There will be shaking of foundations, cracks in the cement of garages, of homes. You would think that the sound then would have to be coming from the ground up. Some people have said, I know that I've got cracks, but it sounded like it was an explosion coming from above. Others will say, it sounded like an explosion from below, and they will have something happen above. It's very confusing. And when people have had these hits on the bottoms of their feet, that's been described in Wisconsin and many other places, they will actually feel pressure on their feet. That means that it is something that is coming from below, and yet in those very areas where that has occurred, when you call up the United States Geological Survey and say, have you got any seismic data in that town at this latitude and longitude at this time where people said that there was a crack in their driveway or there was a slap on the bottom of their feet? There's no seismic data. And then there are the flashes that come on the security cameras. We've got two tonight that compare the booms. Many cases, security cameras have gotten just a bright flash, and then they get a boom. Clear skies, no thunder, lightning activity for hundreds, 200, 300, 400 miles. So this is a truly genuine phenomenon, and it has been reported worldwide, and it has come in cycles. There have been places like Louisville, Kentucky, that I always associate with these strange booms that are shaking houses, making dogs run afraid, and I think of that as in July. There have been many cases in the Salem, Massachusetts area in October. So as you go around the planet, if you took all of the places where people have been reporting and you put them on a map and you put dates, you would find that there are cycles. But the complexity of where it has been being reported to keep track of it all, I don't know anybody who has a kind of universal 7-year-long map of all of this. And that's why it's so important to share this with you, all of you out in the YouTube audience, because you can talk with your friends and your family and become aware, help educate other people. So if there is a sound like what has been recorded on these two cameras in Phoenix, or something that people say is bigger, more like a bomb sound, and then there are the sounds like trumpets. I've heard many of those recordings. They are very strange. And then, finally, another category are what people say, I was waked up by what sounded like metal grating against metal. And some people have gone further and said that the metal grating against metal will have high-pitched, eerie sounds with it. And then some people, maybe a half a dozen of reports of people that I've interviewed, they will say, imagine hearing a locomotive train crash with a car or another train. That's a lot of metal colliding. What is that? And that's why this phenomenon is worth reporting, continuing to report when it occurs, and to hope that all of you listening, wherever it might happen, or somebody that you hear about says, did you hear that weird boom? To let me know, because then I can keep trying to report when it's happening and where. Now, in the YouTube Earth Files channel in this past year, I think personally that one of the most interesting segments has been in the fall when somewhere around the October-November period, I had the strange white foggy material come in on the back window, and then 2 weeks later something came across where I was sitting. And on Halloween night, I shared a story about my encounter with something in which the subject of that encounter, of the dark hulk, the appearance of the huge white blazing cross, had to do with my soul. And that after that foggy stuff came into my office, a lot of you who have done your own studies or had your own experiences said that they thought that also had to do with a soul level of something that might have been in my family that I was close to. And I ask those of you who had had any experiences with night paralysis or dark hulks or floating out of your body as a young child between 4 and 6, if you would write me. And I now have file folders that each one is about that thick. They are the most compelling reading, and I am seriously thinking about putting together perhaps a book that would, with your permission, I would come to all of you, that we might be able to put some of these extraordinary events that a lot of you say you've never told anyone in your life before. But if there was ever a time on planet Earth when humans needed to be talking with each other about experiences that they have had with light, with the dark, recognizing their soul, being saved by blazing white crosses, and even diving into that word. What is the soul? In the 21st century, it has become almost mythological in the Western industrial world. And yet I and so many others feel that the soul is the single most important part of living life on earth. And that part of the challenge, perhaps, of being on a planet and living with the ups and downs, the detritus of living life in a matter world, is beginning to learn how to recognize the pressure of your soul and what does happen at the moment of death. Some people have described seeing something wispy come up out of a relative, sometimes within a half hour and sometimes later. And with that introduction, I want to share one of the most extraordinary of the letters that I have received. It's dated November 2nd. It is from a man who resides in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. Dear Linda, I listened to your Halloween broadcast on YouTube. And in one segment where you were talking about a fog or a haze that appeared to one of it was me, it reminded me of a mysterious and somewhat frightening similar occurrence that my father and I experienced a number of years ago in 1972 or 1973 when I was a teenager, around 15 to 16 years old. I'll give you a bit of background info so that you can really appreciate this experience. I have no problem with you identifying me by my first name. So I'm leaving out his last name, and his first name is Warren. This is Warren who is writing. And if you are interested enough, I would like you to pass this on to your listeners. I have had a number of unexplained experiences all throughout my life that are equally as mysterious as what I'm about to relate to you, and were at times downright scary. If you are interested at all in some of the other experiences I have had, please feel free to contact me, and he has not communicated by email, not digital. It's by hard letter. I've gotten lots of incredible typed, handwritten letters, and this is one of them. And I am going to be writing him to tell me more. But this letter is extraordinary to share with you. My father was a mortician for about 25 years. He was not superstitious or given to believing in paranormal events, although he had experienced several strange occurrences during the course of his career that he told me about. But this is an experience that my father and I shared together. My dad worked for two funeral directors by the name of J. Harry Stroud on 63rd and Callowhill Street in Philadelphia, and later for Frank Rothermel in Havertown, Pennsylvania, after Mr. Stroud passed away. Frank Rothermel had married Mr. Stroud's daughter, Doris, and when her father passed away, Mrs. Rothermel asked my father to come to work for her husband. Their funeral home was a large complex where their living quarters were on the top floors of the funeral home, so they lived above the funeral home. I had been accompanying my father since I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I would play with my toys in a corner of the morgue while my dad embalmed bodies. As I grew older, I naturally became more curious about the work, and I began helping my father with his work. Frank handled the administrative end of the business, and my father and one other gentleman did all the embalming. On this particular occasion, my father and I had just done a removal of a man's remains from a nursing home, and we had placed the body on the embalming table in the morgue in the basement of the funeral home. There was a viewing going on upstairs in the building, and my dad wanted to let Frank know that we had returned with the body and we were getting ready to embalm it. So we left the morgue and we went upstairs through the outside entrance to find Frank. We were gone from the morgue for no more than 15 minutes. The first thing that we noticed when we returned was that the light, which we had left on, was now turned off. That was our first indication that there was something strange going on. As we stepped into the morgue and turned the lights back on, we saw that the very large room was entirely filled with a white, foggy haze that was half opaque and fairly obscured the bright lighting. I heard my dad, "What the hell? There must be a fire." He started rushing around the morgue looking for the source of the smoke, but there was none. We looked in the supply closet, but there was nothing there either. We stood there just looking at the haze, and it was then that we realized that there was no burning odor, so it was not smoke. And it kind of whirled and swirled around in a wispy sort of way. But parts of it rolled around in a circle, while other parts of it made something like a funnel, like you would see in a tornado. The morgue had an extremely strong ventilation fan for obvious reasons. And my dad reached over and he turned that switch on. I could feel the air current drawn by the fan, but it had absolutely no impact on the swirling, tunneling white smoke or haze. The fan wasn't drawing any of this haze out of the room. It wasn't causing any change in the haze swirling or moving as it had been before Dad turned the fan on. At this point, I looked directly at the body that was on the table in the far corner of the morgue, which was off to the side of where we had just been standing and looking. It was then that I noticed the haze that was around the body seemed thicker, and it was kind of obscuring the body, but at the same time, there was what seemed to be light. There was a light within the haze that enveloped that body. And then the light started to slowly shrink as it rose above the table, and then it hovered in place above the body, glowing. After a few moments, it slowly drifted to the corner of the ceiling where the light met the wall, and it just stayed there for about 10 seconds, glowing. And then it faded away to nothing. I was dumbstruck. I looked at my father and I said, "Did you see that?" He was looking where the haze dissipated on the ceiling, and then he looked at me, but he didn't say anything. It was then that we became aware that the rest of the haze in the room was quickly disappearing, but we could see that it wasn't being drawn out by the fan. It was just disappearing, like when a cloudy glass of water turns clear. My dad said we shouldn't say anything to Frank about what we had just seen, because he would think that we had lost our marbles. We never talked about it again, although a few times I tried bringing it up. But my father just would not discuss it, even when he told me some of his other experiences. I think this one scared the bejesus out of him. Sadly, my father passed away in 1984 without me ever being able to convince him to talk about what we had both seen together that day. Looking back, I believe that what we had witnessed was a soul transitioning to the next dimension. I don't understand how paranormal events fit in with UFOs, but I do believe they are related somehow, and that they share some kind of common thread in our existence. I believe that everything is somehow related. Linda, as I said at the beginning, I have had other paranormal experiences and also at least one UFO sighting. I am willing to talk about them and passing them on to you. I think that what you are doing through your reporting at Earth Files, Phenomena Radio, Ancient Aliens, Coast, your YouTube channel, is more valuable to so many people on a personal level than you will ever know. Please do not stop trying to expose the truth about what most of us have felt sure for so long is true about UFOs and these other phenomena. With that, Lori, I would like to turn our dialogue tonight to our audience, both for your questions to me about what I've talked about tonight, but also to let you all, if you want to make brief comments, Lori could tell me through the iPhone if some of you recognize anything about what I've said tonight. But more than anything would be for you to follow up with emails and written letters, handwritten or typed, to tell me if you recognize anything about this story in a morgue where they were going to prepare the body for a funeral. And up comes the haze, fills the room. I only had a little bit here. And that in that haze, a light began to glow right over and above the body. And then they could watch it move to a corner. What is the soul made of? How does it live in a container? And at the moment of death, transition out and even glow so many times that through the centuries, people have talked about seeing a glowing light come out of a family member. I just find this to be one of the single most fascinating subjects that any of us could ever try to share and understand with each other. And Lori, I would like to know what some of the comments might be tonight and that we could talk about some of this in questions.
I do have a couple of questions for you. The first one is, can you please ask Linda, ask how Linda came up with that trippy introduction music that she uses on KGRA Radio and Truth Hunters on Gaia.
Yes.
I know there's a story, so I had to share that one.
Yes. It is called City of Cyborgs. Brad and I were working about 5 or 7 years ago on some Earth Files little mini docs, 10 or 12 minutes. And one night I wanted to have something that felt like, you know, when you say with music, it feels like inside of yourself. And I was listening to a lot of music on the computer. And it was like where you could go and pay a fee for music and then have copyright okay. And that's where it started. Brad, who is helping me with the video and the images and all. And I told him, I said, I have found this City of Cyborg and I just love it. and I paid money for some extended use time. So that went into the Earth Files videos. And then when we started doing Phenomena Radio, at first, John and Race had a different type of music. And I just asked them one day, I said, would you listen to City of Cyborgs? I love this music. It's sort of like a mantra theme for me. And see if you would like it for Phenomenon. And Race called me up and said, Linda, I love that music. And so it became my Phenomenon theme. And for most everything that I've done, I think of that City of Cyborgs. And in a strange way, for those of you who have seen me at conferences in the last few months, and you have heard my Is Artificial Intelligence an Existential Threat to Humanity? In that theme, when I heard it that first night, I've always had this sense of melancholy that on our planet, that survival is not guaranteed. Not for us now. It wasn't for other species in the past. We are now in the 6th extinction. On Coast to Coast next Thursday, I'm leading off with one of the most both profound and emotional interviews that I have ever done with a scientist. And it was about the recent National Academy of Sciences report in mid-October about the decline of insects around the world. There are so many extinction events now, and somehow, deep inside of me, City of Cyborgs. Is that what humanity is going to have to move to survive itself, what is happening to our planet? And all of it seems woven into these dialogues that I'm having with you on a weekly basis about what are we in relationship to more than one type of alien intelligences that whistleblowers in the government have been talking to me about for years. They don't even understand the agendas. If Earth is a laboratory to them, what are we to them? And everything that I have ever felt strongly about in my life this time around has been that humans are worth fighting for. And that humans are worth fighting for because our souls are so important. And this is what needs to survive. And all of this seems to come in to me when I listen to City of Cyborgs. These are the thoughts that run through my mind every time I hear that music. And I'd be curious, maybe some of you will think it's really boring electronic music, but I'm telling you what honestly comes into my mind when I hear City of Cyborgs. Another question?
Absolutely. The next question is, have you had any experiences with your dreams that weren't really, quote, dreams, close quote?
I'm sort of like my mom. She didn't dream much. I've never dreamed much. But when my mom had a dream that she remembered, she would tell us. And it was always something that came true. It was eerie. And in my own life, dreams seem to be communication to me from things that are coming. And I don't precisely understand how it works. But I would say that in my life, when I have a vivid dream and I remember it when I wake up, within a period of time somewhere, that dream is going to become clear that it was precognitive and it was about something in my life upcoming. There is one dream that in I hope a long arc of time fits this and is definitely worth sharing tonight, because it's the only one of a kind dream I've ever had like this. It was so vivid. It was so vivid that when my eyes opened up, I was in this other environment. And I still can remember it was so vivid, it was so startling that I got right up out of my bed here in Albuquerque and I went right to my computer because I didn't want to lose this image and ask the computer what do these images mean. And now I'll just give you what happened. The first scene in the dream, I seem to be in an all wooden, like when things are made out of like sugar cane or bamboo. So it feels like, looks like I'm in a tropical place. It may have been Southeast Asia. I've never been there yet in this life outside of being on the edges. I've been in Vietnam and I have been in Laos. I haven't been in any of the islands. I haven't been to Singapore. I have been in Hong Kong. But this felt like, looked like, even was steamy, humid. It was that vivid in the dream. I could feel temperature. I felt moisture. And everything seems to be made out of something like bamboo, except it was stained. It was dark brown. Not bamboo color, but it looked like that. I'm on a second story. I can see out a window. I know I'm up on a second story. I can see all kinds of green tropical plants, but where my mind is going is where I'm standing, I'm looking right through slats of bamboo and what looks to be not like a door, but like a window between rooms. Very odd. So I'm looking through a window and it goes into another room, goes into another room. So now I'm about 4 rooms away, maybe 100 feet, 90 feet. And I become aware that down there's a peacock. And as I see the peacock, the beautiful, extraordinary colors, it comes right through all of these open spaces and wraps its neck around my neck. I can feel the feathers. I can feel the warmth. I am astonished. I'm being hugged by a peacock around my neck. And that's when my eyes opened up. It was so extraordinary. I'm still seeing it. I'm seeing all of it. And I get out of bed still seeing the scene vividly, and I get to my computer and I have to turn my computer on and I have to wait for it to put in the question. I put in the Google URL line or that search bar. What does hugged by a peacock mean? And I remember being shocked when answers came up. Hugged by a peacock. Sanskrit referenced ancient texts. Giving your soul eternal life. Look it up. Let's see. What about another question?
You got it. So the next question is, at a 1995 MUFON lecture, Dr. Carla Turner presented a list of known variables in alien abduction phenomenon to her peers. Do you think these variables have remained the same since decades past, or have we found new ones?
Can you ask this writer to give me an example and say the name again? Because to be very honest, my attention while you were reading was that back up on the window, Fluffy has jumped up, not quite as high as where that fog initially came. That's quite higher, but now I've got Fluffy back there. And so I was completely taken away by him. So just if somebody listening who asked that question would just fly to Lori an example of what you're asking me about. And maybe we could take another question while you're waiting to get that.
You got it. This is another question. Linda, I wonder if there is a connection between reincarnation and abductions.
You know, that is a very, very good question. And what immediately came to my mind, Jim Sparks. Maybe some of you are aware of him. Back in the early 1990s, Jim, Italian descent. I met him for the very first time at the Eureka Springs Ozark Conference. And he had come, it was his very first time to speak as somebody who had been very concerned about his business in real estate. He was married. He had a normal, quote unquote, normal life in the Southeast. And here he is being introduced to me and to others at a UFO conference and feeling very self-conscious. It was very clear. He was not sure he was doing the right thing, but he felt, for some reason, compelled. That's what he told me that day. I still remember meeting him for the first time. I would come to know and spend a lot of time with Jim Sparks because he told me at the conference that he wanted to do a book, but he didn't know how. I told him that I was working on a 2-volume book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and that it took me from 90 to 94 to do Volume 1, and then it took me from 94 to 98 to do Glimpses Volume 2. So it was an 8-year, 2-volume book. So I met Jim right about that time where I was putting out Volume 1, planning Volume 2, and I said, why don't we do a really in-depth interview, whatever illustrations of anything that you've got that can support your story. And so in Glimpses Volume 2, you would find what Jim Sparks and I worked on in that 93 to 94 time period about his story. He would later do his own book. I think it's called The Keepers. And why I tell you all of this is that it was in the process of working closely with Jim and helping him get his amazing story out into my Glimpses Volume 2 first, that I was able to see what he was afraid of, what he was concerned about, and to learn that the whole key to everything in Jim Sparks' persistent abductions over and over and over from his bed, remembering, feeling his whole body vibrating, seeing often what he said, it looked like a hologram, Linda. It was an owl, and it was above the bed, and I could see partly through it. But when I saw that owl, I knew that I was being taken to learn math, letters, words, and language, because and he was dealing, he thought, with the prime gray intelligence, whichever one that is, there's so many types. He knew the little ones were android robots. Most abductees are never confused by the little ones. They get the feeling they're there to do the work. They are programmed like we have a computer, only we're dealing with intelligences that have all these little androids, and they are programmed for specific work. Jim felt that right from the beginning. It was the taller Jim said you could feel, Linda, you could feel the energy of the tall beings that were in control of everything. He said they could be 100 feet away. And he said, and I could feel the energy coming off of them that would never come off of the little ones. And eventually, in this teaching Jim, here are the alien comparable letters and numbers to your writing in an English alphabet, and he would have to go through all of this, and it's all in my book, and then it was all in his keeper's book. And he hired an artist who was very good and did brilliant illustrations of the powerful beings that were in control of his education at something like a computer, learning an interface in their language. But the part that really, really got me is that Jim said, the soul is what it's all about. They showed me other lives. And you have the drawings that he did with the artist that take Jim Sparks from his life in the 1990s in the United States and being shown all the way back. I believe his earliest was back to what we would call the time when Greece and Italy were the high arts with the gorgeous architecture, and that he was one of them. And in each of his, we'll call them being taken through the theater of other lives by the gray beings, Jim would remember something about that life, that he failed or there was a problem, and it would take him back to the previous life and a previous life and a previous life. And when he got back into Italy, he had some kind of a revelation that whatever he had done or not done in Italy, when it was at the prime of civilization, that it was the reason why his soul had come back around in the body of Jim Sparks in the 20th to the 21st centuries, and that whatever it was that the beings were studying, their study of him had been for centuries. And we had one day, I remember, a very complex and deep discussion. Do humans really have any free will? If our matter evolution was brought into being by advanced intelligences, are our very souls related to their experiment? That, I think, is what Jim considered. But it was in that discussion with Jim Sparks about the reincarnative memories and scenes that non-humans were showing him was the link to his current life, that I think I began to feel strongly for maybe the first time in my life that whatever is interacting with our planet, with the moon, with Mars, this solar system, the Milky Way galaxy, throughout this universe, whatever the big cosmos is for, I think that wherever there are souls, they have come from what I call the divine field. I do not think that the non-human entities in this universe that have taken an interest in our planet, our solar system, have any access to, cannot create a soul. But I really, really think, after all of the interviews that I have done with people in the abduction syndrome, that non-human intelligences are intensely interested in the soul that is inside the Homo sapiens sapien on planet Earth. if we knew the big truth, it might be that there really is a political war that is going on between light and dark forces. And maybe it's been going on through universes, dimensions, and timelines for what we would call forever. But it is in that battle that the soul plays the pivotal role. You have to know what side you're on. I have no confusion. The new t-shirt, Linda Fights for Light. I have been trying to since I was a child. I'm trying now harder than ever, because I think all of us feel that the earth is at another pivotal point. When you have as many extinctions of earth life as are occurring now, that we are at a point that rivals, wait till you hear that report that I'm going to do at the beginning of Coast next week about what's happening to the demise, the fast dying out of insects and what it could mean for our future. When you hear scientists saying there hasn't been a time like this since, and they're talking millions of years, we have to be at some sort of pivotal crux. Everything in me feels that if all of you listening could talk to families, we could all talk around the world straightforwardly, honestly, and open, without having the feeling that governments want to silence us, governments want to control what we say, governments want to edit a lot of us out, that somehow right now the big battle between light and dark is pitched through what is politically happening on planet Earth. The more we are aware, the more we actually try to fight to speak our truth, whatever it is, on each of our ground, under our feet. That's all of you. That's everybody on the planet. Taking people out of abuse and manipulation by all kinds of forces. That might give us a chance to be humans on planet Earth without being manipulated by unseen intelligences. And it might finally make humans reconnect with the soul that I think every human has. And if you are connected with your soul, how can you kill another human being? How can you kill animals? It's as if being aware, plugging into the soul, is the key to all of us surviving. And there are forces that are trying to keep us dumb and blind and manipulated. And I want that to end. I want that to end so much. I really hope we get that headline, "We're not alone in this universe." Let it be a shock to the human system so that maybe we can grow up. And that's part of why I hope all of you keep coming on Wednesday nights. I'll keep trying to change the subjects. But if you broaden and let everybody else that you know say, let's come and let's have dialogue together on these Wednesday nights with Linda Moulton Howe at the Earth Files YouTube channel, even this much might leverage something that we haven't got a clue what our dialogues may have an impact on. And if you agree, let me know. And I would also like for Lori to put out an inquiry from me to all of you. What are the subjects having to do with the high range of phenomena? What are the subjects that you are most interested in having dialogues about having me find information out. And that might go to that question, Lori, where I was being deflected by Fluffy behind me, of what was an example of the person asking me about something that was being applied, I believe, and I would like to hear that again.
Okay, we'll certainly put the word out. Also put the email address out so people can reach out to you.
Yeah. Earthfiles at earthfiles.com. Think of a reporter who files news about the Earth. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Earthfiles at earthfiles.com.
I don't have any other questions. I do have a couple of comments, though.
Okay.
Now, the next one is, let's see. In regard to leaving your body, I've left my body. I've had sleep paralysis. I've seen haze as I would leave my body. Another person said, I saw a smoky human-like figure in my living room as a child. My little puppy kept barking at its feet, but it was floating above the floor. The haze kept hitting the borders and kept bouncing off. Someone else said, I saw a thin, smoky spiral rise from my cat's body when she passed.
Wow, and it's spiraling again. It's that spiral. It's that motion. I wonder what that's about. And remember my own cat Simba that I talked about on the YouTube channel a few months ago, that this was a cat I'd had for almost 18 years. Oh, I love Simba so much. He was a white Persian Himalayan, sort of like Fluffy. And when he passed, it was, it hurt. I physically hurt and sobbed and cried. And within 24 hours is when I had that really amazing experience of being waked right up with my eyes open. And there was Simba inside of what looked like an oval like this. And I could see a spiral. It was gray. It actually had a color, and it was spiraling behind him like he was in something that spiraled, but he was sitting there, vibrant and alive. And I literally grabbed I was going to take him out of this portal, bring him back, and the whole thing faded. I wonder what the spiral is about. If any mathematicians or scientists are listening and they have any hypotheses about how these portals connect between our matter world, other dimensions, other timelines, I would love to hear from you, because I think this is one of the keys to our existence now in the matter universe, and where we go at the moment of death, frequencies that we resonate with, and not everybody goes to the same resonant frequency, and that this idea of something involved with a vortex and spiral seems to be part of the physics. And on that note, Lori, I would like to say to everybody, whatever your relationship is with another force, a divine field, whatever, that at the close of 2018, I'm praying for peace. I am praying that there can be more positive energy, that light will prevail in whatever is the contest, the battle in this universe. And that all of us will be back on Wednesday. And I don't know, Lori, should we bypass next week, and that the next Wednesday would be on January 2nd that we would be back?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be traveling and gone. That's the day after Christmas, the 26th. So you want to go for the week after?
Yeah, that's what I mean, that we will go from today to Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019. So write down thoughts, questions, notes. Be aware of what may happen that seems dramatic to you in communication in your dreams. And we'll come back in 2019 to carry on these dialogues of what I think is just like diving into gold of what has been happening in all of your lives that you have never shared with anybody in a lot of these subjects, and that maybe we can try for a countdown, 2019 countdown. When in 2019 will we see that headline around the planet? We are not alone in this universe, and we never have been. So, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy everything. God bless all of you.